Hey everyone, welcome to the deep dive. Today's a little different. We're doing a deep dive into one listener's story.
Yeah, and before we get started, I always like to remind our listeners that everyone's situation is unique, right? Family dynamics can be so complex.
So true. Our listener Sarah wrote to us, and don't worry, we're using a pseudonym to protect her privacy. She's navigating a tough time with her mom, and she's looking for some guidance, I guess.
Which is really brave of her, actually, to be willing to share something so personal. And, family estrangement, it's not uncommon at all. A lot of people just suffer in silence.
Totally. So Sarah's actually given us permission to share her story, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of you out there. So if you're going through something similar, please know you are not alone.
Absolutely. Family stuff, it can be really, really tough. Okay, so let's get into it. Sarah's relationship with her mom, Diane, she describes it as long and just emotionally exhausting. It seems like Diane always needed to be in control.
Oh, yes.
And anytime Sarah tried to set boundaries, like any of us would in a healthy relationship, Diane would just become super negative, guilt trips, silent treatment, the works.
Yeah, classic signs of a power imbalance, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's about control. The
Oh,
one
yeah.
person uses these tactics to maintain control and dominance in the relationship.
Hmm.
And they can be so subtle, these tactics. The other person ends up feeling totally off balance, always second-guessing themselves.
Totally. It's like walking on eggshells all the time,
Right.
right? Never knowing what's going to set them off. And Sarah really tried, to make things work with her mom. She tried to talk to her, tried to explain how those behaviors made her feel.
Which is what you'd hope would happen, right?
Exactly. But it always backfired.
Yeah, that's a common thread we see. People in these situations, they start making excuses for the other person's behavior, or even blaming themselves. They just keep hoping if they try harder, things will somehow magically change.
Right. That hope that things will just get better. But for Sarah, there was a breaking point. Another argument, Diane belittling her, and this time it was actually for Sarah trying to set boundaries. Can you believe that?
Wow.
And that's when Sarah made a really tough decision. She went no contact, cut off all contact, phone, social media, everything.
It's a huge step, for sure, going no contact. And it's often a last resort. But sometimes you just have to prioritize your own well-being, and that means creating a safe space for yourself, free from that emotional harm.
Yeah, and for Sarah, it really seems like it was about finally choosing herself, choosing her mental health, hoping for some peace, some space to heal and figure things out.
Right.
But that peace, it was very short-lived.
Oh, no. What happened?
The ripple effects, let's just say, they started coming at her from other directions. So we left off with Sarah making this really difficult decision to go no contact with her mom, hoping for some peace. But that's when things really took a turn. And that's where this whole smear campaign thing comes in, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, unfortunately, a common pattern we see.
So break it down for us. What does that even look like, a smear campaign?
So basically, instead of maybe, reflecting on her own actions, Diane decides to paint herself as the victim. And Sarah, she becomes the villain. Yeah, it's a classic manipulation tactic, this whole social sabotage thing. So Diane starts spreading rumors, half-truths, really trying to control the narrative and turn other people against Sarah.
Oh, wow. So she's making Sarah look bad to anyone who will listen.
Exactly. Trying to get sympathy, isolate her even further. And this works particularly well, with people who aren't really in the thick of it, in the family dynamics. They just see it on the surface.
Right, they're more likely to buy into it.
Totally. So it's like, trying to win an argument by just getting everyone on your side, even if you were in the wrong to begin with.
Ugh, that is rough. And people believe Diane.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, Sarah starts getting calls from family members, some she hadn't even spoken to in years, and they'd clearly gotten this, warped version of the story, questioning her actions, repeating the same accusations that led her to distance herself in the first place.
Oh, man. That must have been so hurtful for her. I mean, it's one thing to try to set boundaries with a toxic parent, but then to have your extended family pulled into it, that just adds a whole other layer of, stress and hurt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way Diane went about it, super manipulative. For example, she told people that Sarah had just abandoned her without any reason, she said.
Oh, come on.
Completely ignoring all those years of, emotional strain that led to this.
Right, erasing all the bad stuff she did, and then making Sarah out to be the bad guy for finally walking away. It's classic gaslighting, isn't it?
Totally. Gaslighting, 101. Making Sarah doubt her own memories, her sanity. Did I make the right decision? Is my mom right? Am I being too sensitive? All those doubts creep in.
Especially when you're already feeling vulnerable, right?
Exactly. So we've got the rumors, we've got the manipulation, making Sarah look bad. But it goes even further.
Oh, there's more. Okay, tell me about this phone call.
Yeah, yes, the phone call. So Diane calls Sarah, and right off the bat, the guilt trip starts. How could you cut me off without a word?
Ugh, here we go.
Playing the victim. Of course, totally ignoring all those times Sarah tried to talk to her before.
It's like she's trying to make her feel guilty for setting boundaries.
Exactly. When Sarah tries to explain her side, like, Mom, this is how you've made me feel all these years, Diane just deflects. It's always back to her, right? Classic lines. After everything I've done for you, do you know how this makes me look to the family?
It's like textbook narcissistic behavior almost. She can't even consider that maybe, just maybe, her own actions contributed to this.
Right. No accountability whatsoever. And what's interesting is how she reacts when Sarah actually tries to stand up for herself.
Yeah. What happened there? What did she say?
Well, Sarah manages to get out, this isn't about you, Mom. I'm doing this for me. I can't keep sacrificing my mental health to make you happy.
Wow.
Which, by the way, huge moment. She's starting to recognize her own needs, putting her own well-being first.
It takes a lot of courage to stand up to a parent like that, even just for a second. I'm gonna guess that Diane doesn't just back down, though.
Oh, no. No, she doubles down. Starts questioning Sarah's mental health, saying it's all in her head, basically.
Oh, that's awful.
Super invalidating. Makes Sarah doubt her own feelings, her experiences.
So not only is she spreading rumors, but she's directly trying to undermine Sarah's confidence, make her question her own sanity, like a double whammy of emotional manipulation.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes you realize how important it is to have that support system. People you can trust, who can give you an objective perspective, remind you of your own worth when you're feeling beaten down.
It's like you're drowning in all this manipulation and you just need someone to throw you a life preserver,
Yeah.
right? To be like, no, you're not crazy. What you're feeling is valid.
Exactly. And even though Sarah's starting to find her voice, setting those boundaries, the smear campaign, it had a long reach. And it went way beyond just their relationship.
So with Diane's smear campaign in full swing, it really started to impact Sarah's relationship with her extended family, which, I mean, talk about adding insult to injury.
It really does. Think of it like this. You're trying to rebuild after a hurricane, right? You're picking up the pieces. But then you keep getting these tremors, these aftershocks. That's what it's like, trying to navigate all that social pressure after you've made the decision to step away. Everything's raw, and then you've got all these voices coming at you, questioning your decisions, and often they're echoing the very accusations you're trying to get away from.
And it's got to be even harder when those voices are coming from your family, right? People you've known your whole life who you'd think would be a little more understanding.
Oh, absolutely. There's this huge societal expectation, right? Family's sacred. You forgive and forget no matter what. And that puts so much pressure on people like Sarah. Makes them question themselves. Makes them feel like they're betraying their family just by trying to set healthy boundaries.
Yeah, like that whole blood is thicker than water thing. But sometimes you just have to prioritize your own well-being, even if it means distancing yourself from family.
Exactly. And that can be a really hard pill for some people to swallow, especially if they haven't personally experienced that kind of toxicity. They might say things like, oh, but she's your mother, she loves you, or just give her another chance. Like, it's that simple.
Right, and those comments, even if they're well-intentioned, they just end up being super invalidating. Like they're dismissing all the pain that Sarah's gone through, all those lived experiences. So what do you do when you're facing that pressure from family, like Sarah is? How do you even start to navigate those expectations and stay true to yourself?
That is the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance between what you need and all those external pressures, which, let's be honest, is way easier said than done.
So where do you even start?
Well, first things first, it's crucial to remember you don't have to maintain relationships that are harmful to you, period. Doesn't matter if it's family, friends, whoever.
Like, give yourself permission to put your own mental health, your emotional well-being first, even if it means maybe letting some people down.
Exactly. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's self-care. And yeah, sometimes it means having some tough conversations, especially with those well-meaning folks who just don't quite get it.
So how do you have those conversations? What do you say to someone who's just not getting it?
I mean, you can try explaining it to them, right? Say something like, I appreciate your concern, but I need you to respect my decision, even if you don't fully understand it. Set those boundaries and be firm. It's not always comfortable, but...
And sometimes if those boundaries are crossed, it might even mean taking a step back from those relationships. Maybe not forever, but just to give yourself some space.
You got it. Protect your energy. Focus on your own healing. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
So true. Hearing Sarah's story and all your insights, It really highlights how much strength it takes to choose yourself, to set those boundaries, prioritize your own well-being. Not easy, but so important.
It really is. And, for Sarah to be willing to share her experience, it's incredibly brave. It reminds us that even in the most complicated family situations, there's always hope. You can heal, you can find peace.
Such a powerful message. And Sarah, if you're out there listening, thank you. Thank you for trusting us with your story. I think it will resonate with so many people. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Family estrangement, smear campaigns, setting healthy boundaries. It's all tough stuff. Just remember, you're not alone.